Welcome to the Ultimate Property Management Virtual Masterclass Part 2, brought to you by Real Estate Investor. Today's masterclass is officially sponsored by WeconnectU, developers of intelligent property management software to enable you to scale and deliver more value to your clients. We are focusing on body corporates and homeowner association managers. So we know that property management is an important factor in owning and investing in property today. Trustees, directors, owners, and landlords are demanding greater value from property professionals. They require more transparent and relevant reporting, tech-enabled workflows, and online portals for increased convenience. So in today's masterclass, we've got our lineup of property experts in their field, and they will share best practice, how various PropTech and digital tools can also help you and assist you, and specifically for community managers and sectional title schemes and homeowners associations and rental portfolio managers to build the ultimate property management ecosystem.
So our topic today, the ultimate deal, and it's really a continual development process for each and every business to understand how to create and deliver and ultimately communicate their value better every single time. So just before we dive into the session today, I'd like to just recap some of the items we discussed in the previous session, just to lay a foundation for those that might have not attended the previous one. So what we discussed was the business of property management. We really broke it down into basic fundamentals and exactly what it all entails. And then we looked at the property manager's value, and we saw how the value is actually currently being expanded by a lot of external and internal factors. We spoke about scalability and the importance thereof. And then lastly, we spoke on the deal, but we really just touched on the topic. And today we actually really want to, dive into that side of it today. So just again, to recap, what is a business? I think it's really important to understand what is a business before we get going. So a business ultimately is a promise, and it's a promise to solve a specific problem. And to then have a sustainable business, you need to solve that problem consistently over time. And I think we also agreed that the greater and more complex the problem is, the greater the need for that business, or we could also argue the more valuable that business is. And the opposite is obviously also true, that if there is no problem to be solved, then there is no need for a business. All right, so then we touched on a couple of aspects that actually is currently making the property manager more valuable. There was a couple of key happenings the last couple of years. 2016, we had significant legislative changes that came into effect. We had fiber rollout, just adding some complexity, utility challenges due to load shedding. We had the global pandemic and the whole work from home new scenario happening that actually is really challenging also for many people. But ultimately, those people need to find their answers from the property manager. And then, like you mentioned just now, the POPI Act is coming into play, and that's quite a big deal. And lastly, on this topic, the concept of broken cities. And I think Vanda, a little bit later today, we'll touch on this topic, which is actually a great opportunity and adding more value possibly to the property manager. So all of this complexity essentially is is creating challenges, but ultimately makes the property manager more valuable. And then we looked at this quote and we said, you get paid in relation to the value that you bring to the marketplace. And there was a huge disagreement on this topic, because we all know in property managers, we do not get paid in relation to the value that we believe we do bring to the marketplace. And we had to change that quote to say, well, we think this is closer to the truth. You get paid in relation to the perceived value that you bring to the marketplace. And this quote really is foundational for today's topic, because we really need to understand, how to communicate that value and how to deliver that value. All right, so then we also wanted to understand, but geez, there's a lot of challenges, and is it a worthy cause? I mean, do we really want to dive into this? Without any doubt, all right, that is the case. So why do we say that? What managing agents really do, all right? First up, they secure and enhance the value of the biggest asset most people will own in their lifetime. That is what managing agents does. They secure and enhance the value of the biggest asset most people will probably own in their lifetime. Secondly, they create a preferred and an enjoyable place of residence. And to be honest, this is the place, especially now with the pandemic, this is the place where we spend the most of our time, of our lifetime. And this is where we spend time with family and friends, and where we actually create memories. So it's imperative that we do a great job in that sense. And then we produce, or we deliver, professional and transparent property practices. And this, in terms of the business model, trustees and directors not being actively involved inside the business, it's all the more important to be able to deliver this professional and transparent processes. So what do we got here? We've got this growing problem or growing challenge, all right? And we've got an immensely growing industry in South Africa. And what we're seeing is a sudden huge demand for buying into community management businesses. And that's because there's value. There's much more value in community management businesses these days. There's high barriers to entry into the industry, which adds to the value of the business. Everybody now sees that it's really a more sustainable long-term business model. It showed resilience despite COVID-19, and it actually made the property manager essential and ultimately more valuable. So with that as an intro, what we're going to discuss today, as I mentioned, we're going to make the deal, and we're going to really discuss the concept of the deal. And as I mentioned, the deal is ultimately a continuous improvement tool used by many successful businesses to stay ahead of the game. So firstly, we're going to define your value proposition. What is value? How do we create value in this business? And how do we communicate that value? Secondly, we're going to be eliminating distractions or inefficiencies. So we need to understand what they are and how can we eliminate them. And then automate systems and processes. That's the A in the deal. Automate systems and processes. So how we can, employ systems essentially to get that done. And lastly, if we've done the first three successfully, we can leverage. And what does leverage mean? And into what should you be leveraging? All right, so let's get started. We are going to essentially, I think, firstly want to clarify who we're speaking to today. We try to kind of put it into 4 categories of different types of property managers, and you can identify maybe where you fall in today. So firstly, you've had enough. Enough is enough. You're tired and you are ready to sell your business. That might be where you are today. So that's the first category. The second category is I can't grow, and in fact, I do not want to grow. You stretch to the maximum capacity and barely hanging on as it is, no growth capacity. Then you've got, you want to grow, but you, let me just vote here. All right. Okay, how do I get this all the way? There we go. Sorry, guys. Okay, so then you want to grow, but you don't have the right tools, the people, or the strategy to grow. That would be the third category today. And then bring it on. You have the will, you have the tools, and you have the people and the means to grow your business. So again, in today's session, it doesn't matter in which category you find yourself in. The deal is designed to optimize whatever you have in your hand. And that, I believe, is everybody's dream. All right, so let's get going with the deal. The first step in the deal is, as we said, we are going to be defining the value proposition. So let's start off by defining value. What is value? And the dictionary says that value is the regard that something is held to deserve appreciation. It is the importance of, the worth of, or the usefulness of something. Now, maybe I'm a bit biased, but thinking back on my property management days with PropConnect, I believe we definitely created a lot of value and we solved so many problems for our clients, but many times we were not appreciated accordingly. And then maybe more importantly, based on the price we were getting paid per unit, it was clear that the client did not place the equivalent worth to our value. And the only thing I could think of, that it was evident that clients weren't able to really see, or they weren't aware of all the value that we ultimately created and the problems that we essentially solved. Now, I obviously started chatting to colleagues in the industry, and I soon realized that this is an industry problem. And if it's something that we can solve, it will benefit every single company a great deal. Now, to kind of get a better understanding as to how to solve this problem, I started to compare, firstly, our industry with a product-based business. So our industry being a service-based business, I then went and said, let's compare it to a typical product-based business. All right, so let's look at that comparison. So we've got a product-based business, and in a product-based business, the core value lies mostly in the product. So let's take a Coca-Cola as an example. It really doesn't matter if you buy your Coke from Woolies, from Pick n Pay, or from a vending machine. The core value of what you're buying essentially is in the can or the bottle of Coke. And if we consider the role of people in the decision-making process, you can see that people essentially is not really part of that process. Yes, we all agree that it would be nice if the store attendees are nice, you know, and they help us, but ultimately it doesn't affect the value of the Coke bottle. And then in the case of the vending machine, there wasn't even a person involved in delivering that specific value, being the Coke bottle. So now we understand the product-based business, and it seems to be relatively easy to define your value. Essentially, it is all in the product. So let's compare that now with a service-based business, which essentially is what property management businesses is. It's service-based business. And in a service-based business, your core value is actually a combination of a couple of things. So what are those combinations? Firstly, it is the nature of the services delivered. All right, that's the first step. Secondly, there's always people rendering the service to people. So your people is another factor that comes in to a service-based business. Then absolutely critical is the efficiency of those services rendered. Then transparency as well. That essentially adds to the value, because in many cases it's a risk reducing factor. If we take property management again as an example, if your director or trustee has visibility at any point in time into his risk of managing this community, obviously that lowers his risk, so that adds to your value. And then reporting on services rendered. And if we think about it, your reporting could be compared, or many people think that your reporting could be compared to literally the Coke bottle, because that's ultimately what you deliver. That's ultimately what the client can see, that is tangible of what has been executed during the month. But it lies in a combination. And I think then we all have to agree on this one thing, that in a service business, even if you get it 100% right, people's personalities, expectations, perceived risks, perceived benefits, and past experiences differ. So unfortunately, we will not always be valued. That is an unfortunate fact, but something that we have to understand. So what is the key takeaways that I took from, this comparison? Is in a service business, your team is your biggest asset. It's ultimately people delivering the services, and your team is essential in this process, and they are your biggest asset. Secondly, it is critical to empower your team with tools to efficiently deliver the value. There's a bit of a combination or a teamwork essentially between the people and the tools that they are empowered with in order to deliver that value. And then the more transparent you are, the better. The more transparent you are, the more valuable. And then lastly, you need to report on all your value. If we compare it to a Coke, all the value is right in there. I mean, if you've got the Coke, you've got everything, okay? Coca-Cola doesn't need to tell you anything more. With a service business, if you haven't shown, displayed, or reported on all your value, people do not know about it. And then we always say value not communicated is value not perceived, which takes us back to that quote where, if people do not perceive your value, then obviously they cannot pay you according to that value. So really important, report on all your value. Well, great. So now we understand the value drivers in the property management or the service business. So let's take a look at the next step. So we defined our value proposition and how we deliver that. The next step is really start to eliminate. That's the next step in this continual improvement process, is we need to start to eliminate inefficiencies in our business. So I decided to kind of just look at a couple of big ticket workflow items that create the most inefficiencies in our business. And that's really just what we see generically in the country. It might be different for your business in different aspects. But let's look at the big ticket workflow items that create the most inefficiencies in our businesses today. The first one, processing of cash books, especially for those clients that have single bank accounts for each different community across multiple banks. We'll touch on that topic. Secondly, processing of supply payments, a really critical aspect of the business. And it needs to be done on time, and it needs to be done securely. So, but it also needs to be done at scale and with lots of volumes. So processing supply payments is really a big ticket inefficiency item. Then internal collaboration or communication. We'll touch on that topic. Then external collaboration or communication. We'll touch on that topic. Then meetings. That is fortunately one that I think due to COVID has taken quite a big leap forward in terms of efficiency. We're going to talk about that. And then lastly, reporting, which can be really, really time consuming. So let's dive into each one of them very briefly. On the first one, Cashbook processing inefficiency, again, really comes in where you've got different bank accounts for every single community. That in itself is not a problem. I mean, the biggest part of the country seems to be going that direction. But the thing that we see is that people are not taking advantage of the bulk processing abilities or profiles that all major banks actually provide. And that allows you, if you align all your bank accounts under these bulk profiles, you can actually export multiple statements at once. And then obviously you need the tool in order to consume that one bulk file and process that in bulk as well, which really takes a month end or even daily processing of your statements or your cash books, way down. It really cuts in time spent there and cuts on that inefficiency. Very similar scenario with the supplier payment processing inefficiencies. If you have the tool in order to load multiple payments per building, and that tool can essentially provide an export into the 4 major banks, the major banks have that ability to import that file and make payment off every single separate bank account. All right, so this is a big ticket inefficiency item that we see lots of people can take advantage of. And then in terms of payment, there is this additional step, actually prior to the payment, of gaining authorization from trustees or directors. And in the past, that risk mostly lied on the property manager, because mostly you would be getting an email approval, and that email approval needed to be filed and saved together with that invoice for the day that that query on who and why was that payment made and was it authorized. All of that lies on the managing agent at the moment. So we needed to really get that process to be much more efficient and take the risk essentially away from the managing agent. So this is the supplier payment processing inefficiency covered. The next one is internal collaboration efficiencies. Now, as you scale your business, what typically starts to happen is you form specialized department, and for very good reason. All right, you typically form a specialized finance department, you form a specialized, or your PMs, essentially your property managers, portfolio managers, as I should say, they essentially a department. And then just as an example today, we've got your maintenance or operational department. And the purpose of establishing these specialized departments is to ensure focus and efficiencies. But we found with working on different platforms that the opposite is actually achieved, all right? And you essentially form silos in your business, which essentially defeats the purpose of scalability. Now, if you've got this scenario, typical issues that you would see in your business is frustration between departments. It essentially comes down to that communication that's lacking. Typical issues that happen is finances are not updated for tonight's trustee meeting. Why? Because finance didn't know that tonight's trustee meeting was even happening. All right, then we've got the portfolio manager sitting in a trustee meeting and is unable to report on progress on a maintenance job because he just didn't have time or forgot to check in with the maintenance department prior to the meetings. And then, because we're not all on one collaborative platform, there is an influx of emails, and it adds to it because you have to CC or BCC everybody to stay in the loop. And if we can get emails down in this industry, I think it will be a great asset for everybody. So again, lots of CC or BCC mails. Then typical questions that flies around in the office is, have you done month end? Have you done the minutes? Because, we don't know. We need to ask each other. Have we submitted CSOS returns? And then if there's an incoming call, typically you'd have to say, I'll get back to you because I don't have the information at hand and I must ask that colleague. So this is typically how the internal inefficiencies scenario look like. So let's, with that in mind, look at the stakeholder or external collaboration inefficiency. So as we know, there are certain external stakeholders that this property management business rely on. So in this case, we still have our departments as we see it, and then we've got these stakeholders at the outside, like auditors. You've got debt collectors possibly looking in or working from the outside. You might also be your own debt collector. And then trustee directors or owners even is those stakeholders that is sitting outside of your business. And again, the inefficiencies create typical issues of lots of additional mails. Again, we need to CC everybody to stay involved. There's constantly having to follow up on debt collection reports or playing the middleman between parties, which can be really time consuming, between the director, trustee, or debt collector. That's, what's happening and are we making the right progress there? And then physically delivering relevant documents to audits. That's something that is time consuming, or the other alternative is you've got the auditor sitting in your office for months during the year and taking up space there. So that's typically the type of issues we see. Questions that you've got if you have these collaboration inefficiencies is, please send me an updated statement. That comes typically from the debt collector or even from the owner. Please send me the latest minutes as well. The auditors typically want that. Again, incoming call sounds like I'll have to get back to you. I'll have to ask my colleague because I don't have the information at hand. And when the trustees ask, when will you have your next meeting, or how far are you with? And then there could be a list of those items. So that's typically stakeholder collaboration inefficiencies and the result of them. And we need to eliminate those. Then we've got community meeting inefficiencies. Now, if there was one positive thing that came out of this unfortunate pandemic, it was getting online meetings to become the norm. So even with online tools, there's challenges for obtaining quorum. I think back in the day, when I still had the property management business, you'd find your staff being on the phone literally the whole day to ensure quorum. There's travel time to and from meetings. There's lengthy meetings due to these new voting requirements, and you even need additional personnel to kind of run the meeting efficiently. And then reconvened meetings because you're unable to obtain quorum. That's probably the biggest time killer from a meeting perspective. All right, then reporting efficiency. So essentially what you've got is you've got each stakeholder often having unique reporting requirements. You've got lay people serving as trustees, so you need to kind of report in a way where it's really simple to understand. But then also at the same time, you've got financial directors and CAs as trustees, and they want just another level of reporting. And then reporting can be very time consuming if you have to compile reports from different tools. So yes, probably, like we said, in terms of communicating value, your most important activity. And I remember spending a huge amount of time customizing reports to suit the needs of my clients. And unfortunately, what happened many a time is you run out of time, and what's the result? We do not report on all our value. At that point in time, we had a very good financial system, and we basically started reporting financially only. And again, the result of not reporting property is more emails, more concerned trustees, again, and more and longer meetings because they are not in the know. So we really need to eliminate these reporting inefficiencies as best we can. So we went on to this journey to create the better way. So we wanted to create, we wanted to deliver, and we wanted to communicate our value better. So we've defined our value, we've identified what is those inefficiency items that we need to eliminate. And then the next step is we need to start to automate. That's the next step in this continuous improvement process, is automate system, automate processes, and really buy yourself more time. So the manual way is where we were, the limited and individual solution scenario. It typically looked like this. Like I said, we had a very strong accounting system that did very strong financial reporting, but then there was a host of other tools that we required in order to be able to deliver that value, creating those silos and requiring us to compile and customize reports as and when needed. The result being, we communicated 50 to 60% of our actual value that we created during the month. So we started doing the automated way, where it was end-to-end solutions. And what did that entail? So firstly, a custom-built financial module specifically for the industry. You can see the admin and reserve fund requirements needed to be catered for, because that's an additional time-consuming factor if it's not automated. the bulk financial processing, the ability to process Cashbook, process payments in bulk, and then arrear management and debt collection to be done, which is integrated with your primary financial module. Again, sorting out financial legal compliance, bringing that efficiency in automated communication, saves time and resources, simple and accurate reporting. Then bringing in many of the operational activities onto the same platform, in many cases integrated to your financial solution. You've got your planner and compliance items, online meetings, something that is really a hot topic at the moment with the third wave out there, jobs, all those maintenance items that need to be done. So bringing all of these different operational aspects into one, and this helps to really bring greater collaboration into the internal departments, because everybody can see everybody else's work and work really efficiently. All right, then we need to sort out the external collaboration, all right, and communication. Now, by bringing the staff, the trustees, the homeowners, complex managers, auditors, and debt collectors all onto the same platform, that is what we needed to promote the teamwork, enhance collaboration, give complete transparency, and ultimate convenience, especially thinking about our trustees. Because we're working on one place and we can bring intelligent dashboards into play, and that assists us to really scale up and be able to manage our portfolios from a global level. And then probably the most important thing in terms of our topic today, because everything sits in one system, with one click we are able to communicate our value. All right, that's what it's all about, the automated way, providing end-to-end solutions. So what we've done, we've defined our value, we've started to eliminate on those inefficiencies through automation. Lastly, we need to leverage and duplicate what we have now, and that is a scalable value proposition. But the leveraging in the property management game, I think, is a topic to actually discuss. I think we'd all agree that you really need to be intentional about the time that you save through efficiency, because it very easily gets taken up just by distractions and things that pop up. You really need to be very intentional. So the question is, what are you going to spend your time on? The moment you've identified an efficiency and you've executed and you've automated that process, what are you going to spend your time on? A couple of pointers. Again, this is something that you need to decide yourself. But the one thing I think that is really critically important in this industry is to invest in your team, to really celebrate achievement, celebrate those small victories. And there's new legislation, and even from a technology perspective, there's training, constant training required to keep your team in the know and on the cutting edge of their game. Secondly, you can decide to invest in certain key clients. All right, that's the next step. So investing in certain key clients. You can also decide to invest in your brand, because now, if you've gone through the process, you're probably saying, hey man, I fall into that category of bring it on. I've got the team, I've got the tools, I've got the solution, I've got the value. Now you can really start to communicate that. And then a last tip here today would be to invest in your business strategy. We're going to hear today about new emerging markets, which is really exciting for the property manager. You can work on your business rather than just working in your business all the time. And you can have your finger on the pulse. So this is really the deal. This is something that is really important. And many companies have used this continual progress tool to scale themselves and create better businesses. Thank you very much.